Hey guys, so we'll take a look at Diddy Kong Racing for the Nintendo 64. So of course this was another Rareware classic, and honestly this was really the last Rareware game that I really wanted for the N64. I'm missing a few things like Blast Corps and all that, but in general I've really got all the ones that I played as a kid and, have really wanted over the years. So this kind of, for me sort of completes my Rareware N64 collection, even if that's not technically accurate. But on the front cover here, of course, we have some great CGI renders of the characters. So, of course, front and center we have Diddy Kong Racing, and I'll talk a bit about him in a bit. We also have Tip Top, the turtle, and Timber the tiger. And, of course, in the background there we have Wizpig holding up a burning tree and, just kind of causing havoc on the racetrack. So, of course, compatible with N64 Controller Pack and Rumble Pack, so you can actually use the memory card and the Rumble Pack. And, of course, 1 to 4 player simultaneous. Now, as you can see by the rating, this is actually an American copy. I actually bought this from someone in Australia, though, so it just worked out well that I have the universal adapter. So then we have the side here, of course, we have a great, really creepy-looking render of Wizpig. We just have some, like a nice snowy mountain sort of region up here. What else we got over here? We have our lovely elephant genie dude. Who I must admit, I still have no idea what the heck he says. Berry! Or something like that. And down here, we have some palm trees and a lighthouse. So that's from, I think is that from the hub area or is that from one of the racetracks? I can't quite remember, but anyway. Okay, so, Timber the Tiger's parents picked a fine time to go on vacation. When they come back, they're going to be faced with an island trashed by the spiteful space bully Wizpig, unless the local animals can do something about it. So join Diddy Kong as he teams up with Timber the Tiger, Pipsy the Mouse, and Taj the Genie in an epic racing adventure unlike anything you've ever seen before. And really since, there haven't been many games like Diddy Kong Racing, that kind of combine, an action-adventure game with a racing game. It's a really cool idea and makes the game really stand out from something like Mario 64. But I gotta say, the story in this game is very, very weird. But a very, very pretty-looking early N64 game, as you can see. And we have a great CG render of Diddy Kong there. Rare were always great with their CG renders. You can see the detail in the fur. But anyway. So yes, 1997 this game was. So a pretty early game for the N64, and actually it filled the gap that a delayed Banjo-Kazooie was meant to fill. So this was kind of like, Nintendo went to Rare and said, what do you got? Well, we got this. And Miyamoto, I believe it was, actually offered the team Diddy Kong to use. We didn't have Diddy Kong originally, in the hope that, it would actually, let the game sell a bit better. So, it's always interesting to me because, we always complain about Miyamoto giving them Star Fox for Dinosaur Planet and making that cool. But in the case of Diddy Kong Racing, it actually worked a treat, because otherwise I don't think most people would really know of the game. I certainly never would have picked it up off the video shop shelf if it didn't have Diddy Kong in it. Okay, so the person I bought this from obviously took very good care of everything, so it's always great to see that. We have our lovely sort of precautions and information booklet here. All your sort of basic, consumer information and precautions booklet. Always very exciting and in as many different languages as possible, so we only have to print one. But that's just our usual fold-out, nothing very interesting. We have a little fold-out here, which tells you how to play the game. So it's just sort of operation card. So it's just a quick little, quick start guide, you might say, just to get the controls down if you're not sure how to play. The controls are pretty standard for a racing game, though. B's reverse. You can actually do special things like a U-turn with B and R buttons and push the control stick. Z button is fire weapon. A button, of course, is accelerate, and stuff like that. But, of course, the big thing in this game is that you have cars, planes, and hovercraft, so they all do control a little bit differently. And then racing. So each course has a vehicle best suited to it. Eventually, most courses will also offer a choice of vehicles. This allows you to practice each track until you can overcome any challenger. And track features, we have things like bananas, zippers, which is an interesting name for those things, I guess because they zip you along, but you're using some sort of British terminology, but it's a bit of a weird name for like a boost ring, what we might normally call. When of course, we have weapon balloons. These are not the golden balloons. They are far too precious to be left just lying around the courses. Weapon balloons are color-coded and get upgraded, becoming more powerful with each power-up. So, of course, yellow shields, green's are droppers, so like mines, red is missiles, blue is speed boosts, and rainbow is special. A magnet that locks onto the nearest racer ahead of you and pulls you up to their position. Okay. Then, of course, we have our manual. And, of course, this being an N64 era manual, it is in full colour, and it has a lot of very cool stuff. So we get a great render of Diddy Kong over here. And if we get further in, we have the story, and again, a freaking terrifying render of Wizpig. But this is a really creepy design. I would love to see something done with Wizpig in the future, because I think he could be a really cool villain design for like an action game or something like that, just because he is really, really quite terrifying. And you can see we actually have a really detailed story, and this was a trend of Rareware games, is they wrote out some really detailed sort of story treatments with dialogue, and they would put them in the manual. So you can see that we've got all this stuff about, you know, like all the characters kind of interacting with each other. So basically, yeah, you know, Diddy Kong sat on the porch of his treehouse and curiously tore open the letter. It wasn't often that a message arrived from so far away that it had to be brought by carrier pigeon. Eager to find out what it contained, he tugged the note impatiently and started to read. Dear Diddy, it began. Help! Now this sounds promising, you thought. Things had been all too quiet since those old family friends, the Tigers, had arrived to spend their summer. See, there you go, Timber the Tiger's parents are good friends with the Kongs. So it kind of all, you know, fits into the universe. That was another thing that Rare was very good at, was kind of building up a shared universe with all their different characters. Something that I think Nintendo could definitely learn a thing or two about nowadays. But, yeah, that was good old days. Hopefully we see a return to that with Yooka-Laylee. But I won't go over all the story, but if you're interested, it is a fantastic read if you're a fan of the game. It's a lot of fun, you know. Good plan, Timber agreed. Come on, guys. Yeah, tip-top, even you. Let's just hope that Diddy Kong doesn't mention any of this to my parents. But yes, Timber the Tiger was originally going to be the protagonist of the game, before Diddy Kong was introduced. But of course, yeah, Rare really made it work with this game. Got a great render. I can't remember the badge's name, I'm sorry, but, you know, a great render. He looks really adorable there, I think. Selecting your game. Of course, everything's themed very nicely, and we get plenty of these cool renders. Diddy kind of giving us a bit of a full frontal monkey there. Magic codes. The options given on this screen allow you to enter new codes, bring up a list of those already activated, or wipe the list completely in order to start fresh. So I think those were just like cheat codes and stuff like that. Sort of for the GoldenEye variety. So we have things like Adventure Mode. So this is the core of a Diddy Kong Racing one-player game, a progressive story mode which pits you against every challenge that each of the four worlds has to offer. And, you know, again, great idea, really great idea to differentiate yourself from Mario 64 and pretty much every other kart racing game on the market. Until Crash Team Racing came out anyway. But even then, this is still pretty unique compared to that. Again, I don't actually remember the mouse character's name. I kind of love it. I always thought she had this sort of like Sailor Moon, or I guess just like Japanese schoolgirl outfit sort of thing on, but it's a very cutesy design. Of course, we've got a central hub area in the game, which again was very interesting. And talking to Taj, muttering about the sheer nerve of Wizpig's intrusion, Taj stomps around the island's central area waiting. You can attract his attention by bumping into him or driving up and honking him with a press of the Z button. So yes, that's the weird elephant genie who just... I still have no idea what the heck he says in the game. It's just like, Betty! Every single time you approach him. Okay, then we have racetracks, and finally we get a great render of Timber the Tiger, and you can see that he was the original mascot because he's got a Rare logo on his hat. So that's kind of cool. It kind of balances him out with Diddy Kong, who has the Nintendo on his hat. Okay, so then we have racetracks. We have boss areas. So that was another thing about this game that was very unique, was that you had boss fights. And honestly, this is a tough game. Like, this is really, really hard to 100%. Even completing it is actually very, very difficult. If you want to actually, you know, fight the final Wizpig boss and get the ending of the game. So then we got Racetrack Silver Coin Challenge, Boss Area Stage 2. And, you know, I do like the fact that it gives so much information about all that. Got Diddy kind of trying to put together a race car there. We got poor Tip Top here flying out of his cart, and he doesn't look too happy there, does he? Man, I love the old Rare style. They had such a consistent way of just making me laugh. We have, of course, Taj the genie elephant there. And I think he was an unlockable character, as I recall. I think you had to do a lot to actually get him as a playable character. Okay, so then we actually have some of the challenge levels. So Fire Mountain, Dino Domain, Icicle Pyramid, Snowflake Mountain, Darkwater Beach, Sherbet Island, Smoky Castle, Dragon Forest, and the exit. But they really do try and explain as much as possible. There's Crunch, the Kremling character in there. Ah, yes, and then we have TT, the very evil time trial clock, who is really one of the main problems with fully completing this game. It's certainly something that I have never done and don't really ever plan on doing. Got some great screenshots there of the game's environments. And of course, it's worth saying that the music in this game was very fantastic, of course made by David Wise of Donkey Kong Country fame. Tracks mode. You can see down here. And then we have the characters, and this was one of the most interesting things about Diddy Kong Racing, because it introduced several rare staples. So as I say, we have Timber, trademark, a playful young tiger. Timber has been left in charge of the island while his parents visit their old friends in Kong Country. Desperate to get Wizpig out and everything else back to normal before they return, Timber rallies his friends to join up with Taj's resistance. Okay, then we have Pipsy, that was her name. Then we get to Diddy Kong. Regarded as a hero after all his adventures in Kong Country, the young primate is a longtime friend of Timber and doesn't think twice about responding to his call for help. He even manages to sneak off without his family's interference, so that's why there's no Donkey Kong. Now, here's where it gets interesting. So we have Banjo, of course. Even before the start of his future partnership with Kazooie, Banjo isn't one to turn down the chance of an adventure. So when Squawks brings the message from his pal Diddy Kong, the honey bear stuffs a few things into his trusty backpack and takes to his heels. So the entire, all the rare games basically take place in the same universe, and that is really cool. And this is about a year before Banjo-Kazooie actually came out. So it was great sort of marketing. And I must say, I have an action figure of Banjo in that car from Diddy Kong Racing. It was basically the only sort of Banjo action figure that was ever released, so very glad to have that. And here's another one, Conker, but looking a bit different to his Bad Fur Day incarnation. Another friend made by Diddy on one of his endless adventures with Donkey Kong. So Conker also knows Donkey Kong, there you go. Conker is also an exploration nut who'll jump at any chance to break free of the squirrel's less than exciting daily routine. He's eager to join up with Banjo as the bear passes through. So yes, this is of course many, many years before Conker's Bad Fur Day. And this is back when Conker was, more of a standard sort of cutesy platformer. And Conker hadn't developed, his alcoholism or any of his other sort of bad habits. And he was still a kid. This is before the downfall. Oh yes, and that was it, Bumper the Badger. So yes, we do have, a little bit more information on each of these characters, which is very nice. And Tip Top, of course, Tip Top is actually a character that also appears in Banjo-Kazooie, but be it under a different, sort of guise. He's a conductor in that. Crunch, and he's kind of interesting, of course, being a Kremling. Seeing Diddy Kong rush off so suddenly makes the Kremlings very suspicious, so Crunch goes bounding after him to make sure there aren't any anti-Kremling plots in the works. Diddy Kong, Timber and company don't exactly trust him, but Crunch insists he's only there to lend a hand. Unfortunately, I don't really go into a lot of this during the game itself, but it's very cool context. But, yes, anyway. And of course we have Wizpig himself, the big bad boy himself, a spiteful space traveler who hops from planet to planet looking for good places to drop in and cause havoc until there's nothing left there to amuse him. Nobody's ever managed to kick him out before he got bored, but there has to be a first time. Okay, and then we actually get on to the worlds. So we have Dino Domain, and again we get a lot of information about all of these environments. Snowflake Mountain, Sherbet Island, and Dragon Forest, but yeah, there's a lot of detail in these environments, and you can really tell that the Rare guys really thought about everything. And then we end with another fantastic render of Banjo. And again, the renders look completely congruent with what we got for Banjo-Kazooie later on, so it was all very consistent marketing. And that was just one of the really clever things that they did at the time. But that's it. So then all we have left is the cartridge. So, of course, very nice and vibrant, but basically just the front cover of the game again, and all our usual sort of information on the back. So, anyway, that is your look at Diddy Kong Racing, a fantastic and very unique racing game that I highly recommend for the N64. And, very glad to finally have this in the collection. I've had it for quite a while now. I've been meaning to unbox it for a very long time, but I actually wanted to sit down and play a bit of it first before I got around to it. So, anyway, thank you guys very much for watching, and I will see you next time.